Welcome back to Digital Wandering, and today I want to talk about Bitcoin, the digital currency. Now, here on Digital Wandering, I talk about all things digital, so I thought it was about time that I discuss cryptocurrencies. Now, there's thousands of cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin is the granddaddy of them all and the most well-known, so that's what I will be talking about today. Now, there will be many links that I will post below in the description box. And now, because of character limits with the description box, there will be some overflow of links into the comments section. Now, my videos tend to be unscripted, and this one is unscripted as well. So we'll see how this goes. I was able to do some prep with the tabs here. So we'll go through this list of tabs one by one, and hopefully my computer will not overheat through this process. We'll see how this goes. So I wanted to start off with the Bitcoin price, which is currently dropping right now. It's been up for the last 7 days, but dropping momentarily, but currently under $54,000. Now, this is the main website for Bitcoin, bitcoin.org. And I just wanted to show you this website to see how it looks today in 2021. And you can go here for information on Bitcoin. But this is the modern website. This will be relevant a little later on, but I just wanted to show you what this looks like. Now let's go to the Wikipedia page for Bitcoin. And I just wanted to discuss a few points here. Bitcoin was introduced in a document called the White Paper in October 2008, but it finally went live in January 2009. So that is the true start of Bitcoin as we know it. It was created by someone that went by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto. That is a pseudonym. There's still a lot of discussion on who Satoshi Nakamoto is, and I have my beliefs, and I will include some links below on the identity of Satoshi, and you can come to your own conclusion. I will discuss it a little bit later on who I think the likely person or persons Satoshi could possibly be. But let's look at what Bitcoin was like in 2009. We can actually go back in time here. So let's get the time machine started by using the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. And I'll be using this a lot today. This is awesome. I love this. So we're on that same bitcoin.org. Missing a few images here, but you can see that it was a much simpler website back at this time. And this is January 31st, 2009, right at the beginning of Bitcoin. And this was published by Satoshi Nakamoto. And let's look at some of this information here. And in the beginning, Bitcoin was Windows only. You could only run the Bitcoin software on a Windows computer. But everything is outlined here. And let's look at what it says here. You can get coins by getting someone to send you some, or turn on options generate coins to run a node and generate blocks. I made the proof of work difficulty ridiculously easy to start with. So for a little while in the beginning, a typical PC will be able to generate coins in just a few hours. It'll get a lot harder when competition makes the automatic adjustment drive up the difficulty. What he's explaining here is the process called mining, and there was an options generate coin that you could go into under the the Bitcoin software that you install on your computer, and that allowed you to do the mining process to generate blocks. Now, basically, and I'm going to try to describe this in a way so that a five-year-old or myself could understand this, and I'm going to try the best I can here. The process of mining for Bitcoins is basically like a competition between computers, where you're competing for the block reward, and that's the generate coins option. In the beginning, it was just Satoshi mining. So the difficulty was as low as it could possibly be, and you could actually do it on your home computer. Now today, there are specialized computing devices that people use to mine Bitcoins. But at this time, in the very beginning, you could do it on your desktop or laptop computer at home. And that was by design because they wanted as many people. There was no other way to get Bitcoin in the beginning other than by mining Bitcoins. So mining had to be easy in the beginning so people could generate coins. But as he saw from right away, that would change over time as more computers joined the network. And it's basically a competition where you're competing against other computers to win Bitcoins. Now let's look at how that works in actual practice here. Now we're going to use a blockchain explorer to look at information on Bitcoin. And we're going to pull up blocks. Bitcoin is built around something called the blockchain. And the blockchain is just transactions that have been grouped together based on time that the transactions occurred. And what the Bitcoin miners are basically doing is verifying transactions. And your reward for engaging in the practice of verifying transactions is the potential of earning a mining reward. And in the early days, now we're looking at block number 1. In the early days, the mining reward for a block was 50 Bitcoins. Now, in the beginning, 50 Bitcoins were worthless, but today 50 Bitcoins have the value of nearly $3 million US. But let's look at some of the information here. Now, this is block number 1. So anytime a new block is added to the blockchain, it verifies or confirms all the previous blocks. So you see that this block number 1 has been confirmed over 700,000 times. So this should be the most current block. This number right here should correspond to the most current block. A new block is added to the blockchain about every 10 minutes. So this is an ongoing process, but we can use this number to pull up information on the most current block. Now, you see the number of transactions here is just 1, and we can scroll down here, and this is the transaction, basically the block reward. In the beginning, there was not much in the way of exchanging of Bitcoins. So often you would just see 1 transaction per block, and that would just be the block reward, the 50 Bitcoins in this case. You see the difficulty here for block number 1 was just 1. And so this is the lowest possible difficulty in far as mining is concerned for Bitcoin. See, the size of this block is 215 bytes. Fee reward is 0. And just take in some of this, because what we'll do is look at the most current block. So I'll use this information here to pull that up. And okay, here we go. And you see the timestamp of this block here. Now look at the number of transactions. Over 3,000 transactions. And see, we go down to the transactions, the block transactions here, and you see where the previous block number 1, it was just 1 transaction. You have multiple pages of transactions, over 3,000 in total. Look at the difficulty, where in block number 1, the difficulty was 1. Now we have, what's this, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, almost 20 trillion difficulty as opposed to 1 previously. So you see how things have changed as far as the difficulty in mining Bitcoin. And it's impossible today, essentially impossible, to earn Bitcoins on your computer at home. What you will see now is entire warehouses filled with these Bitcoin miners. And that's the kind of power that you need today in order to have any potential to earn Bitcoins. The block reward is lower now. So it was 50 in the original days. The block reward halves itself about roughly every 4 years. So right now is 6.25. And how much is that? That's almost $340,000 for 6.25 Bitcoin. And you also see that there is a fee reward here as well, where the fees was 0 previously. Let's go back to block number 1. And now we have here the fee reward, or the block reward, I should say, not the fee reward, the block reward, went to this address. Now at this time, Satoshi Nakamoto was the only one mining. So let's click on this address info. And this is the address where those 50 Bitcoins were sent. But you'll see here, it's more than 50 Bitcoins here right now. And this address has received Bitcoins, 50.3.47 and on, but nothing has ever been released from this address. So everything, nothing has been spent. And you see that the last transaction was in September. What is happening here? Let me see if I can explain this. Bitcoin users from around the world send trace amounts of Bitcoin to this address because they know this is Satoshi address. One thing that's very interesting about the addresses that receive Bitcoins that were mined by Satoshi, nothing was ever spent from these addresses. So you have over 50 Bitcoins here, nearly $3 million in value. Nothing has ever been spent. So from what we understand is that Satoshi never spent any Bitcoins that he generated. And he was the primary miner in the beginning, and he potentially mined over 1 million Bitcoins that he received and never spent. And that's really important. And so this is going to be an ongoing thing. So you have 136 transactions, only one transaction, actually the 50, the other were just trace amounts of Bitcoin sent to this address in tribute to Satoshi. Let's look at some other blocks here. I'm going to go to 50,000. You see what the changes are. Then this is in April of 2010. Still one transaction. The block reward to this address here. By this time, you have additional miners. So it's not just Satoshi mining at this time. There's all different types of miners. There's many people that are still is a very small community, as you can see by the number of transactions, nothing here. And the difficulty has gone up a little bit. It's now at 6. But this happened right before an important event that occurred in the Bitcoin world. And that is this here. Pizza for Bitcoins. Now, an early Bitcoin user named laszlo offered to pay someone 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 large pizzas. And he put this request on bitcointalk.org. Now, bitcointalk.org is the place that you want to go to learn about early Bitcoin history, because this is a forum that was created by Satoshi Nakamoto, and all the early things that happen in the Bitcoin world essentially happen here. There's a couple of things that happen off this forum, but this is the place that you want to go to get most of the documentation on early Bitcoin. And this is really important because this is a trading of Bitcoin for an actual product, in this case, food. Now, I was always I misunderstood the situation. I thought what happened here is that when I first heard about Bitcoins for pizza, I thought a Bitcoiner went to a pizzeria and convinced the owner to accept 10,000 Bitcoins for pizzas. But that's not what happened. He just went on the forum and request with other Bitcoiners. He put out a request, hey, I'll give you Bitcoin for pizza. So they use credit cards to purchase pizza over the internet for Laszlo and have it sent to his house, and he sent the Bitcoins to them. So the pizzeria in itself was not involved in any way. They just received normal funds. And for some reason, I also thought this happened in Europe, but this happened in Jacksonville, Florida, where the actual pizzas were received at. Another thing that's kind of interesting here, because 10,000 Bitcoins today is, I guess, over $500 million in current value. At this time, according to this user, ender_x, he says 10,000, that's quite a bit. You can sell those on Bitcoin Market, which is one of the early places that you can purchase Bitcoin on the internet. And he says you can purchase 10,000 for $41 at that time. So he felt that it was $41 for 2 pizzas was a little too much. And I read in an article where the only transaction that's outlined here is the 10,000 for 2 large pieces. But apparently Laszlo did this multiple times. He traded as much as 100,000 Bitcoins for pizzas, according to the article that I read. So he did this multiple times. One of the reasons why he had so many Bitcoins is because he was one of the earlier people who developed GPU mining of Bitcoin. So as you saw on here in Bitcoin.org, originally the Bitcoiners were using their CPUs on their computer, but using GPUs to mine Bitcoins is a lot more efficient. And Laszlo was one of the people that helped develop that. Laszlo also, as it stated on Bitcoin.org, was Windows only. Laszlo also helped develop Mac software, so you can join the Bitcoin network on a Mac computer. So he was very important in the history of Bitcoin. And one of the things is that he based this on the value of Bitcoins at that time. I think no one could really think that Bitcoins. Now there were a few people that thought Bitcoin would definitely grow in value to a huge amount, to millions per coin. There were people that thought that in the beginning, but in generally he's basing this on what the value of Bitcoins, or around the value of Bitcoins at that time. This user felt that he was still overpaying based on that number, but still it was within the ballpark at that time. But very quickly after this, Bitcoin just shot up in value. So we look at this today and we think what could have been if he held on to these 10,000 Bitcoin. Let's look at here. Let's go back to the blockchain explorer. Let's go to 60,000. Block 60,000 for Bitcoin. So this is after Bitcoin for Pizza happened in May of 2010. So now we are at June. Difficulty has gone up. Now we're at 16. Still very low compared to the nearly 20 trillion of today, but it has gone up from 1 to 7 to 16. Still just one transaction. Let's go to 100,000. Block 100,000. Got to get my zeros right. Transactions is finally going up in any of the blocks that we looked at. Now we have 4 transactions. So we actually have more than just one now. And look at the difficulty now. And I think this is just a result of the GPU mining taking over. Now we're at 14,000, over 14,000 difficulty. So you can see how much more competitive with time is becoming, to how much harder it is for an individual user to get Bitcoin. Still very low compared to today, but it's getting harder and harder as the months go by. We'll get out of that. Get out of Bitcoins for pizza. Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, we do know that Satoshi mined up to or more than 1 million Bitcoins. I just don't believe, when we're talking about the potential identity of Satoshi, I don't believe that anyone that is currently alive fits the bill who could potentially be Satoshi just because of those 1 million Bitcoins. I don't think anyone that is potentially Satoshi that's still alive. They all are involved in some type of commercial enterprises. I don't think anyone has a good enough story to explain why they wouldn't touch those 1 million Bitcoins. I just believe that anyone that's potentially Satoshi is probably not with us any longer. They passed on. And now there's some possibility that because there's been some messages from accounts that we know Satoshi used that have happened years after his disappearance. It's possible that Satoshi, even if he's not with us anymore, he passed on some of his login information with direct instructions to trusted individuals to make posts under certain circumstances. But I generally believe that Satoshi has passed on many years ago, and I will actually include some links below to explain some additional information about that. But you can come to your own conclusions. I have no more access to information than anyone else. Just my general feelings on the matter. Now let's talk about Bitcoin on YouTube. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting about YouTube is that there's not a lot of videos that I think were ever posted to YouTube about Bitcoin in like 2009 or 2010. This is the earliest Bitcoin video that I'm able to find, and this is right at the end of 2010. It's December 31st, 2010. So barely in 2010, this video. I just haven't been able to find evidence of any video earlier than this. Now it could have possibly been a video that has been removed from YouTube. Maybe the account has been deleted or the video has been removed itself. But I don't see any, I wasn't able to find any evidence of any earlier video than this, or I wasn't able to find any earlier video than this. And this video is really interesting. It will be a link in the description for it. And it explains the purchasing of Bitcoin using this service called CoinPal. Now, this is the person that actually created this service. And you could use PayPal to purchase Bitcoin. Now, one thing that's really cool about this is that this website is still live today. So let's just look at that website. This is it. So you can still access this website on the internet. It's been permanently closed, this service. So it's been still on the internet for over 10 years now. It probably doesn't cost much to continue to host this page. But it also goes into greater detail in a post here on Bitcoin Talk, where he explains why the service has been closed down. And it's basically because PayPal froze his account. And one of the problems is that a lot of the earlier Bitcoin markets online used uh, PayPal as the payment processor. But I think Bitcoin was against their terms of service. And there was also a lot of issues with fraud and people paying for Bitcoins, receiving them, and then disputing those charges with PayPal. So a lot of the earlier Bitcoin services had their PayPal accounts uh, frozen. But look at this. This service was only operational for 4 months, as explains here. And he distributed almost 61,000 Bitcoins, 60,858 Bitcoins through this service over those 4 months. That's over $2 billion of Bitcoins in today's money. Now, in that original video, I don't have it here in front of me any longer. Bitcoin, he was showing how the service works, and I think Bitcoin was around 30 cents, somewhere around 30 cents at that time. So that's around a little around $19,000 worth of Bitcoins at that time, but in today's money, over $2 billion in Bitcoins. Same individual. He also had a service here where he was showing how you can use Bitcoins to purchase gift cards. And here he shows how you can get Domino's pizza gift cards using Bitcoins. And this service here is actually the service is no longer active. This video is from February 2011. You will see starting in 2011 some Bitcoin videos on YouTube. 2010, I was only able to find that one from December of 2010, right at the end of the year. But getting into 2011, you start to see videos on Bitcoin, early videos. This webpage, again, is still live. And I think this service lasted until 2012. Another early Bitcoin video from YouTube, May 2011. In this video, this gentleman showing how to set up Bitcoin mining operation here. Early Bitcoin mining. Now he has actually updated, has an updated comment here that he penned. That's really interesting. So he's an early arriver here on Bitcoin, fairly early arrival in 2011. And he says here, for those wondering, I sold all my coins a long time ago at about $15 a coin. Yes, you read that right. It seemed right at the time, because after that, it never got above $10 again for like 3 years. Now I think about it all the time. What could have been? Sadly, I'm not a millionaire. One of the things that's kind of interesting, it seems that a lot of the early Bitcoiners did not get rich from their Bitcoins. They could have been definitely profitable. $15 a coin. At the beginning, if you were mining Bitcoins, the only cost you had was the cost of your electricity. And $15 a coin was probably a good price. And when you think of in 2009, Bitcoins essentially had no value. To get $15 for every coin you generated was a good price. So based on what Bitcoin valued at today, you could, with the benefit of hindsight, you could say, hey, they should have held on, but they based their decisions on what they did with their Bitcoins based on the price at that time and the conditions at that time. They could not tell the future. It seemed like some of the early Bitcoiners that became wealthy from Bitcoins are either people that saw it as a business right from the start and were able to hoard a large number of Bitcoins and held on to them for whatever reason. A lot of normal everyday people who were part of the Bitcoin network in the early on, they wanted to see Bitcoin adopted and used as an actual currency, so they encouraged its use. So they did things like the 10,000 Bitcoins for pizza, or by selling them at the available price at the time, which was a good price at that moment. Now I want to talk about my introduction to Bitcoin. The first time I heard about Bitcoin was in this article here, and this is from 2013, April of 2013. Will Bitcoins make me rich? And I remember this article very well, and it had a really strong effect on me because I could see how Bitcoin had value as a digital currency. That really fascinated me, but I didn't buy it. I did not buy it, and let me explain why I didn't buy it. Just by looking through the this article, let me just read what it says here. Let me begin this column with a lengthy disclosure. One morning last week, I stopped at my bank, filled out a withdrawal slip for $1,027.51, and walked away with an envelope full of cash. The odd amount was deliberate. I had been instructed by Local Till to be exact in everything I did. What's Local Till? Don't bother Googling it. It's a shady looking website. Offers only murky details, explaining that the firm is a way for merchants to accept secure transactions when selling goods online. It's something like PayPal, except Local Till isn't tied to your bank account or credit card and instead deals only in cash. This makes its transactions less traceable, less regulated, and as I would soon experience, more final. Next, per Local Till's instructions, I drove to a local Bank of America branch and asked for an out-of-state wire transfer slip. I scrawled out Local Till's New York bank account number and handed my wad of cash to the teller. This was a dizzying moment. I have been on the internet forever and have been well schooled in frauds that begin with the instruction, first wire your money to an out-of-state account. Yes, here I was doing exactly that. If Local Till was a scam, I have no recourse. So why am I willing to take such a risk? Bitcoin, of course. So this was my introduction to Bitcoin. And this was like, whoa, this is crazy. You're going to go to, this is a digital currency and I have to use cash to purchase it. This is why I was like, I can't buy this crap. Even though I was fascinated by the technology, because I was introduced to Bitcoin by this method of purchase. I didn't know anything about any way of purchasing Bitcoin other than this. And let's look at that website, Local Till. Now, unfortunately, it's not on the internet any longer, but we have the magic of the Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive. This is what it looked like based on a snapshot. You know, are you going to send your money, your cash to this? This is the website that he described as shady looking, and it does look like a shady looking website. Now, he did receive his Bitcoins, but I didn't have confidence in sending my cash to a company that their website looked like this. And this is why in 2013, now around that time, Bitcoin was around $200 a coin. Still very early, especially when you look at the price right now, over $53,000. But I could not do it. I could not do it. Let's look at some of the ways you could purchase Bitcoin in the early days. So this is New Liberty Standard. I believe this is the first website, again, with the help of the Wayback Machine. I think this was the first website you could actually purchase Bitcoin that was created. And let's look at something here. Very simple website, like a lot of the early Bitcoin websites. They were not pretty to look at for the most part. They were very basic. And let's look at how, because this is one of the things that you might want to think about. So this is from December 2009. How did they come up with a price for Bitcoin? They were generating these on their home computers. What was the basis of how they could charge money for this? So let's look at how he came up. And this is how they did it in the early days. So let's look at exchange rate here. And we can actually use this. Sometimes links do not work, but they actually have a snapshot of this link. So we're able to click on that link and it will take us to the next page here. So this is the exchange rate that he has here. We sell $1,578.76 Bitcoins for $1 US. and he explains how you buy and sell Bitcoin. You send an email to his Gmail account stating how many Bitcoins you would like to buy or sell. And he was using PayPal. This is what a lot of the early Bitcoin sellers use in order to process their payments. And the rate changes at midnight, Greenwich Mean Time, regardless of whether a new rate has been posted. So this is a primitive way of doing this here. And look at how he does the exchange. Our exchange rate is calculated by dividing $1 by the average amount of electricity required to run a computer with high CPU for a year, multiplied by the average residential cost of electricity in the United States for the previous year, divided by 12 months, divided by the number of Bitcoins generated by my computer over the last 30 days. This is how they came up with a price. How much the cost of electricity were to produce Bitcoins on their home computers. So that was the basis on their initial exchanges, how much they charge for Bitcoin. So that's just an interesting part of the Bitcoin history. Let's look at another exchange here. This is probably the more professional, the first professional looking exchange for Bitcoin. Again, we're still in the early days here. This snapshot was from September 10th, 2011, and this is the Bitcoin market. If you remember from Bitcoin Pizza, where the comment from the user was like, you can get for $41, you can get 10,000 Bitcoins on Bitcoin market. This is the market he was referring to. So this is, again, another one of the early Bitcoin markets that the website is not live any longer, but you can see the snapshot here using the Wayback Machine. Now, this is the most famous of the early Bitcoin markets or exchanges. And this is really important because at one point, as you see here, it was handling over 70% of all Bitcoin transactions worldwide. So this was the big boy, Mt.Gox. Now, it's not with us any longer, and I believe it shut down in 2014. And there was a lot of problems with Mt.Gox in relation to management and also theft. They dealt with hacks from the beginning of hackers coming in to steal Bitcoin. I will include some links to documentaries on Mt.Gox in the description. So I would definitely suggest watching them because they're really great viewing. And you see how the early Bitcoin world, how it's so tumultuous, so much turmoil in the early Bitcoin world where things were constantly on a razor's edge. Just really difficult. And I wonder if I was an earlier buyer, I didn't know about Mt.Gox at all. I only knew about that local till way of purchasing Bitcoins. But if I did buy through Mt.Gox, would I be one of the people that had their Bitcoin stolen? As you see here, 850,000 Bitcoins belonging to customers in the company was missing and likely stolen. Valued at 450,000, or excuse me, 450 million at the time. That's at that time in 2014. This is billions of dollars worth of Bitcoins today. Let's look at what Mt.Gox looked like around this time. So this is the way it looked, the website. June 12, 2011. But by 2013, much more professional looking website. And you see they also have, it looks like a mobile app as well. But by 2014, this is no more. So yeah, definitely you want to watch some of those documentaries that I'll have a link to. These early Bitcoin markets were often used by users of this particular website that's no longer with us, the Silk Road. It was a dark web marketplace where you could buy illegal drugs. using Bitcoins. There were other dark web marketplaces before Silk Road, but I believe Silk Road was the first one that used Bitcoin exclusively for purchases. And there will also be some documentaries related to the Silk Road below in the description as well. I think the Silk Road was actually very important in the early development of Bitcoin because it was launched in 2011 in the early days, and unfortunately, it was a very strong use case scenario for Bitcoin. People needed Bitcoin in order to purchase drugs on the Silk Road. And as you see here, provided goods and services for 100,000 buyers. And I don't know if this influx of criminality into the Bitcoin network, although it probably added to the spread of Bitcoin, but it also added the criminality element. And as I was talking about a lot of fraud and things that really hurt a lot of the early Bitcoin markets in the early days, and the hacking and everything, how much of that was due to people needing Bitcoin in order to purchase drugs on the Silk Road? I can't tell you, but I think it has to be a contributing factor. Bitcoin versus black people. This is a early Bitcoin video, December 2014. One of my early Bitcoin memories. I think I came across this on Reddit around the time when this was released that month. And it was shared by users on there in the thread. Now the thing is, it's called Bitcoin versus Black people, but it's basically a universal message here, non-technical, like an everyman message, every woman message. For this is the reason why you should purchase Bitcoin right now. Stop what you're doing and buy it right now. And at this time, he actually gives the price at the time when he was making this video. And I believe it's like $370 for one Bitcoin. And as you can see, it's 53,000. So it's more than 100 times more than what the price was when this video was released. And it was really, really a good, I think for someone that was not technical, was not a part of the world that Bitcoin sprung from, if you're just a normal average Joe, this was a video that would explain in ways that you can understand why you should purchase Bitcoin. And I did not purchase at this time. So even though I thought that the video was great, I did not buy it at this time, and I wish I did. I just saw this video recently. This is an animated video. Wojak travels back in time to buy Bitcoin at $200. And in this video, he goes back to 2015, early 2015, in order to purchase cheap Bitcoins. And I'm thinking why that's so lack of ambition. Why go back to the time where it's $200? Go back to a time when it's 10 or $1 or pennies. I mean, why would you go back to 2015? That's not my dream time to go back to get Bitcoin. For me, the dream time was 2011 or earlier, maybe 2010. But yeah, this is a fun video, and I'll include a link to it below. So that's basically everything I know about Bitcoin in a slimmed down version. But there's a lot of information on the internet that you can get on Bitcoin. Now, I already shown plenty of things so far, but there's way more, and I just wanted to put attention on some things that have been helpful for me. So we had the Bitcoin Wiki. Now, we were at Wikipedia earlier, but this is a wiki devoted just to Bitcoin. So if you need information on Bitcoin, this is an excellent place to go. And I will have a link for it below. This is the book Digital Gold, and I'm reading this currently. Now, this is the preview on Google Books, so this is free. So if you want to check out the book, it's not the entire book, but it's a preview, a decent size preview, so you can really get a sense of what the book is about and whether you want to actually go out and purchase it or go to the library, however you want to do to get it. But yeah, it's an excellent book, and I'll include a link to it below so that you can read the preview. Now, this is a series of articles on Bitcoin history that was published on Bitcoin.com. And now, unfortunately, there's not a great index for this series of articles, so I had to actually just use the search function looking up Bitcoin history. And there's 25 parts. The 25th part, for whatever reason, is not listed as part 25, but that's it right here. And it comes up in kind of reverse order. So you can pull up part 1 and read all the way through. And each article is based on a particular topic related to Bitcoin, early Bitcoin history. As you can see, Bitcoin reaches $1. WikiLeaks and the Hornet's Nest, the first Bitcoin wallet, is really awesome. And it has also links to original sources that are listed here. So you can really learn a lot about Bitcoin history by going through this. I will have a link to the search result here in the description. Now, we talked about Bitcoin Talk a lot here. Now, this is a great thread in Bitcoin Talk. And in this thread is a super thread that have links to important threads in the history of Bitcoin. So this is the most iconic Bitcoin Talk threads, history on Bitcoin Talk. So all the important things that happen in the history of Bitcoin that has a thread on this particular website, and it also has links to other things that are off-site as well that are associated with the thread topics. So you can go down and look at all this here. And I think the Bitcoin history from Bitcoin.com that I just showed, I will probably start there first because that will put a lot of this in context so you can understand it, and then go to this. But yeah, you could spend all day on this if you're interested in the early history of Bitcoin. And it's just really well organized and has a lot of information that you can get from the original sources on Bitcoin Talk. Now, if you're like me, I love documentaries. So the best channel on YouTube for Bitcoin documentaries is Plot 11. And there's just so many Bitcoin documentaries. I have links to some of my favorites in the description, but there's way more here than I could possibly link to. And you're talking about short documentaries and feature-length movies as well. So it's just a great resource. If you're someone that likes to learn about something in a documentary format, if you're that type of person, you want to learn more about Bitcoin, you want to come here. And this is my probably my favorite general channel on cryptocurrency. So there's information on Bitcoin here, but it's information on all the major projects in crypto. So, and you see it's a very popular channel, a coin bureau, and has 1.4 million subscribers. They release like a new video every day. So it's really a great place if you want to learn about crypto. Each video has a decent length, about 20 minutes. Seems to be very well researched, and the information is very solid, it seems. You be the judge, but I definitely think it's a good place to go to if you want to learn about Bitcoin. Now, lastly, on this channel, I constantly talk about different devices, mobile devices. And if you're going to want to access cryptocurrency services on your mobile devices, you may have a question on which mobile operating systems you may want to use. In general, I mean, you make your own decisions, but in general, I think iOS or Android are the best places to go to. And I'm talking about major flavors of Android, whether stock Android or something from one of the major Android phone manufacturers, are the best place to go because the compatibility with apps. So you will have access to apps of all the major services that provide cryptocurrency content for you to use on your smartphone. So I'm talking about exchanges, I'm talking about wallets, I'm talking about all that type of stuff. So if you want to access your crypto on your mobile smartphone, I would probably suggest to go with one of the major providers, whether iOS, iPad OS, or Android. You do have other options here. I mean, you do have Ubuntu Touch, you have Calyx OS, you have Windows Phone. The problem with Windows Phone is that there were applications created for Windows Phone for cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and others. The problem with those is that they haven't been supported for some time. You could probably access certain things through the certain services through the browser, but also the browser hasn't been updated for some time. So there's probably a definite security risk for using any type of crypto, actual cryptos on your phone. And some of the apps I think have been pulled from the app stores. They're not downloadable any longer. So you may have some existing apps that you're still using, but there could be a security risk because they probably haven't been updated for a long time. Calyx OS, if you're using an alternative Android operating system, is pretty good. I think they do have crypto applications that are crypto apps that are available through like the open source Android store, the F-Droid store. And then you also can also have access to official mainstream Android apps through something like the Aurora store. The problem with that is that they probably require some type of Google services to operate. There are definitely ways that you can get apps that require Google services to operate on something like Calyx OS. I don't know if it's going to be the same experience as using a mainstream Android operating system, um, but that definitely probably is the strongest way that you can utilize crypto in an alternative operating system is something like Calyx OS. Ubuntu Touch, I talk about Ubuntu Touch all the time here. There's not a lot of apps that you can use on Ubuntu for uh, storing or using your crypto on or accessing crypto on an Ubuntu Touch phone. You may be able to do some things through the browser, but I'm not sure what that experience will be like. So yeah, you do have options, but in general, probably for the average person, going with iOS or Android, a mainstream Android variant is the best way to go. All right, so that's basically all that I have to say for today. If I have anything else, I'll do a part two, but I think this is basically it for this time. Thank you for staying with me through the length of this video. This is Digital Wandering signing off.